It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Divas That Care. My name is Candace Gish. A huge welcome to each and every one of you today. It's a beautiful day. It's a little chilly where I live, but it's beautiful, and I'm just so grateful to be here. If this is your very first time tuning in, we're so excited for that you've joined us. We have an amazing group of women that are hosts on the Divas That Care Network. We interview people from around the world, and it is so much fun. I hope that you're able to go and check out all those amazing hosts and all of their guests, because you know what? It's all about being inspired and empowered to be the best person that you can be. Today, I am just beyond excited. I have this amazing woman that comes onto my program as a monthly guest, and she always comes on and teaches us tips and tools, to live a healthy lifestyle, and to be happy and healthy and, to really inspire the people around us. So it's always amazing to have her on the program, and I'm just so grateful to have her. So Rhonda Armour, welcome back to the Divas That Care. I'm so excited to talk to you again.
Thank you so much for having me. You're right, it's a beautiful day, so it's a great day to have some powerful discussions around our health and wellness.
You know what? I couldn't agree more. It is a perfect day for that. Rhonda, before we kind of get started today, would you mind introducing yourself to our new listeners?
Absolutely. So I am a solopreneur. So I'm a one-woman show as a nutrition and lifestyle coach, as well as a personal trainer. And I offer all of my services virtually, which is amazing because then I can touch base with anyone around the world, regardless of where you're at. And primarily my focus is on just what you said, Candace, making sure that we are taking really good care of ourselves and living happy and healthy lives because it matters. And I work with women one-on-one to develop strategies for integrating healthy habits into our individual lives. We are all unique individuals, therefore we deserve a unique approach. We all know, that we should be eating healthy and we should be, moving our bodies and getting good sleep and all of those amazing things. But sometimes we have challenge figuring out how we integrate that into our lives because we're all so busy. So my role is to partner with women and give you a support system and motivate you and keep you accountable to integrate those habits into your life in a way that works for your individual lifestyle. And it's fun and it's amazing to see the progress, and women feel amazing and they get their energy back and their health back. And that's what it's all about, feeling amazing each and every day so that we can sort of conquer everything that we're looking to in our life.
I love that. And it's so important to be able to do that too, isn't it? Things are always changing. Things are always evolving. Our health is always changing too. And I had mentioned a couple of seconds before our program started about the things that I'm kind of going through. And it's nice to be able to have somebody that can help us through those transitions, because even though it could be scary at times and challenging, if we have people around us that's surrounding us, I think that it makes it a lot better. It's not as challenging because we have that support network around us.
I could not agree more. That's what this is about. What I do right with my clients is it's truly a partnership, because sometimes you can't sort of see the forest for the trees, as the saying goes, and we get so overwhelmed with how we should be taking care of ourselves and what that looks like for us as individuals. And to be able to have someone like myself, to be able to bounce ideas off of and run things by and, complain sometimes and celebrate the successes at other times is super powerful. I often tell, people that are new to my coaching services that, I, a few years ago, decided to hire a business coach, not because I don't know what to do, in terms of what I offer my clients, but in terms of running my business and having someone to partner with that I can like I said, complain to, or to, celebrate amazing things that are happening, or to gain a new perspective on something, or think of things in a way that I hadn't thought of before. That is invaluable because we don't always have the answers. And you're right, things are always changing, and sometimes there's so much information out there. So to be able to have a great, these amazing, powerful conversations that I have with women is super inspiring for them. And it allows them to realize that they're not alone in their journey when it comes to their health, their self-care, and how to make it work for them. It's great to not have to be on an island all by yourself trying to figure these things out. Yeah.
Well, and not being alone. Isn't that the truth? Sometimes we feel like we have to do it all by ourselves, and we're scared to ask for help. And I think that we have to really encourage people to ask for help, because we can't do this alone, and we get stuck in these ruts, and we can get to the end if we have somebody beside us a lot quicker.
Yes. And it doesn't show signs of weakness. You're not failing if you're asking for help. I think it just allows you to move forward in a more efficient, productive way.
I agree.
And it feels awesome to be able to have someone by your side doing it, right? So it's win-win.
I love it. Well, and today we are going to be talking about the power of choices.
Yes.
And why is that important?
So I want to, when I coach women, I make sure that, like I said earlier, that it's very custom, right? It's based on their individual lifestyles, because we're all very different, right? We have different jobs, we have different family situations, we're involved in maybe in the community in different ways. And so choices become really vital to the process of figuring out your self-care, because then you feel like you're in the driver's seat, because you're not bound by one way of doing something, or one way of eating, or one way of, exercising. Giving yourself choices allows you, like I said, to be able to feel like you're in the driver's seat, but it also allows for flexibility when life, throws different curveballs at you, because it will, right? And if we're confined to one way of doing things, then when we suddenly can't do that one thing or do it that one way, then we don't know what to do. And we don't have any other options available that we've made to ourselves. So I am really big on choices. In my new book that I just released, a couple months ago, I have a whole chapter on this, because it's important to realize that we can give ourselves different choices when it comes to our self-care, so that we can be flexible and not just sort of toss our self-care out the window when life presents us with different obstacles.
Well, and that happens all the time. We've talked about multiple times on this program in the last couple of years that's throwing little curveballs here and there at us. And now we're trying to reevaluate our lives and trying to figure out things. And like yourself, you made a choice, to start really coaching online and doing a lot of virtual stuff. And it's kind of leading us into the different choices that we have within our lives. And so I want to talk more about, what do you mean by the different choices that people have? Are we talking now about the different foods that we can eat? Are we talking about the different exercises? What kind of things can our listeners really take home with them?
Okay, so if we talk about food, for instance, and if you've listened to this program before, you know that I'm very anti-diet, right? And I'm really unsubscribing to the diet mentality, because the diet mentality is that you do it this way or you fail. And I'm about broadening, the options available to us. So if we think about food, when I work with clients, we discuss different meal options for breakfast, for lunch, for dinners, for snacks, so that they have choices available to them. So, for example, if we're going down the path of breakfast and, we're trying to, clean up, someone's breakfast options. And so what we do is we brainstorm together a list of maybe 4 or 5 different breakfast options that might be appealing to that particular client based on their likes and dislikes of certain foods, based on their lifestyle. We have to consider choices allow us to be flexible, around how much time do we maybe have in the morning for breakfast? What sort of mood are we in the morning for breakfast? What might we have on hand on any given day for breakfast? So if you've now given yourself choice around what you can have for breakfast, you can then make a decision what your choice is going to be based on all of the factors I just listed. Like, again, do I have to be out the door really quickly? Do I have more leisurely time to have breakfast? What do I actually have in the house for breakfast? What am I in the mood for breakfast? Now you've given yourself options based on what's happening in your life, so that no matter what you pick, you know you're going to choose a good option because you've already done the work ahead of time to predetermine what those choices could be, versus just getting up in the morning, rolling out of bed, showering, whatever, and going down to the kitchen and winging it. Because when we do that, we don't make good choices when we wing it, because now it's like, oh shoot, I have a meeting in 10 minutes. Okay, let me just grab a couple crackers or just a banana. Or, oh shoot, I forgot to buy my eggs. Well, now what am I supposed to have for breakfast? So by giving yourself options around food for different meals and snacks, you've already done the legwork. You've done the hard work of making some choices for yourself available. And then when it comes to the moment, you can just pick whatever you feel like having in that given moment.
And we've talked about in the past, too, the importance of being prepared. And that's kind of what you've been talking about. Some of us do things on the weekends, and on a Sunday, we're like, okay, we do our shopping, we've got everything done, we've got our meals prepped, we have our kitchen stocked. Is that kind of a big key to success?
Yes, absolutely. And it allows you to have those choices through your week if you get pre-planning. I don't expect anyone to stand in the kitchen on Sunday for hours and hours. That's the last thing that I want to do, and that's the last thing I want for my clients to do. But we all have to grocery shop, right? We all want to and we don't want to be at the grocery store for hours wandering around aimlessly trying to figure out what we're going to buy and what meals we're going to put together. It's good to go in with a game plan, right? So if you have a plan and we're thinking, okay, what do I need for breakfast foods? Again, I'm using breakfast as an example, but this can apply to any meal, any snack. And then you head to the grocery store and you go, okay, so for the choices I'm going to give myself for breakfast, here are the items that I then need. And then when you wake up every day, you don't have to plan every day of the week, what you're going to have, but you can wake up and go, okay, based on what's going on in my life today and what mood I'm in today, how much time I have today, well, this choice, that I've already, identified, this is a choice that works for me today. And, oh, look, I already have everything in the fridge, available to me, ready to go. So I'm not panicking because I didn't have eggs or didn't have Greek yogurt or didn't have toast or whatever in the house. So you're right. That planning, that proactive work is really key to developing the choices that you're giving yourself, so that when the choice is on you each morning, you don't have to do a whole lot of thought, right? You've already done the legwork before.
Well, and you're not feeling so strict, I think, too, because isn't it true that when we feel restricted, we sometimes sabotage ourselves?
Yes. And that's what I talked about at the beginning, about the fact that you get to be in control when you've given yourself choices, right? Whereas if you only have one breakfast option because some diet or some person told you that you can only eat this in the morning because this is your best option, and then you wake up and you go, I don't want that. I don't want to do that. Or, why do I always have to eat this every day? And we rebel against it, right? And you sabotage your efforts, and then you get annoyed at yourself because you didn't just eat what you were supposed to, quote unquote, eat. And instead, I want you to feel empowered to be able to make a choice that works for you. But we're giving ourselves choices. Again, if I go back to the breakfast example, we're giving ourselves choices, 4 or 5, very different choices that you then are empowered to choose based on, again, what you're in the mood for, what you have, how much time you have. And then you don't feel so restricted. And that's a great point, Candace, because it is so key. We as humans don't like to be restricted and don't like to be told, right, what to do. And because we fight back, we just naturally do that. And now if we're avoiding that by giving ourselves choices, then now instead of being restricted and being defiant about it, we're going to be empowered now to make a good choice because we've given ourselves choices.
And we want long-term success, not quick results.
Yes. And let's face it, we don't want to eat the same thing for breakfast every single day. Of course, I'm a creature of habit and tend to do that, but it doesn't work for everybody. So you don't want to eat the same thing every day and then get sick of it and then have no idea what your other options are that are available to you, right? And, we're just talking about food here, but to your point earlier about same with exercise, I want people out there to pick, a variety of different forms of exercise and ways that you can move your body that you enjoy. right? I don't want you to punish yourself by, feeling like you have to go for a jog or you have to do yoga when you hate jogging and you hate yoga. Pick things and make choices available to you for things that you enjoy doing. And, here are my options for moving my body on any given day. And then based on, again, what you're in the mood for, how much time you have, what the weather is like, then you can choose what movement you want to engage in on any given day. And they're going to be sources of movement that you actually enjoy and therefore are more likely to actually do it.
But how important is it to keep on a routine, though? You're giving us choices, but is it important to be on a routine?
For sure, 100%. And when it comes to choices, the choice is not, yes, I'm going to work out, no, I'm not, right? We want it to be yes. But I think there goes back to your pre-planning that you mentioned earlier about food. We can do the same thing with our workouts based on what our life looks like, right? And not assume that we're going to be able to magically find time in our day to schedule in, workouts, or not even schedule, but just like do it in the moment. If you schedule it in and create a routine for yourself, then you're more likely to actually do it because you've booked an appointment with yourself for that day to do some movement. And I'm using the word movement deliberately because I don't want everyone to think that it has to be this hardcore, intense, sweaty workout in order to be effective. We just want us to be moving our bodies on a regular basis. And if we can schedule that into our days and fall into a routine that it just becomes part of what you do and who you are, that is ideal. But again, if you've given yourself choices for things that you like to do in terms of movement, then you will fall into a routine a lot easier than you trying to force yourself to do something that you don't like.
Exactly. And this is probably a good thing if some of us have dogs so that we can go and take them for a walk.
Yes.
Sometimes we don't necessarily want to be outside or doing different things, but it's necessary in order to take them and do different things, and it gets us out there. And once we get out there, we really enjoy it.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, you don't have to do all these things by yourself, right? Take the dog, take a family member, do an activity, play a sport, whatever it works for you. And same with the food piece, right? You don't have to plan all of these things or, by yourself unless of course you live by yourself, and that's different. But if you have family members around you, it's really helpful to brainstorm ideas for choices with your family. Right? And doesn't mean everyone needs to eat the same thing all the time. Dinner kind of tends to be the exception for that, where we don't want to make, 4 different dinners for every person living in the house. But it's nice to collaborate with our loved ones for ideas around
couldn't agree more.
Food. I think that's really helpful. Again, then you don't feel like you're doing it all by yourself.
I like this. This is so great. And for all of us, that are part of this program, or we have children out there that we're trying to inspire also. And some of them have moved on. I have an older daughter now that's now living on her own, and she's doing her own things. But I think it's important to even inspire them to make proper choices, because sometimes they don't necessarily do that.
Yes. Absolutely. I think I have kids too, and I think it's great to, lead by example and show them that there's a different way to approach your self-care than having to be so strict and confined in what you hear out there, whether it's on social media or from friends or, on TV or whatever, of the right way to take care of yourself. I want people to understand, and I want our kids to understand that they get to be empowered to make choices that work for them and coming up with custom self-care habits that work for their lives. And it doesn't mean, right now, if you've got kids, depending on the age, their lives look one way right now, and that can change based on career choices and family choices. But understanding that we are always in charge of how we take care of ourselves, and that we have choices available to us to be able to adapt to the changes that life throws at us.
And that's why we love having you on this program, because that's exactly it. And we don't think about stuff like that all the time. But when we have a conversation and we can hear that, it kind of makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's thinking of it in a different way. Again, there's so much information out there, and we always feel like, oh, I should be doing that. Oh, maybe I should be doing this. Oh, well, my coworker's doing this. Maybe I should do that. And I just want to stop being so confined in how we think about our self-care, and understand that it can be a fluid thing that can be changing. And in terms of the strategy for how we integrate, the habits and the choices that we have available. And I think if we're paying attention to how we feel about the habits and see what's working and not, and understand that sometimes it's a little bit of trial and error to see how it's going to work for us, instead of feeling like if we don't succeed the first time we try something that we've automatically failed. And then we give up. And I don't think that's, I oftentimes with clients, I meet with them every week, and, 1 week we'll say, let's try this approach and see how you feel. And you come back, what are the successes, what are the challenges? And then we regroup and go, okay, let's move forward with this, but let's change this up a little bit until we can sort of pinpoint what's going to work. There is flexibility when it comes to our self-care.
And I think that's really important, because sometimes we don't think that way and we don't realize that. And, I've been there. I've failed at so many different things. And, as a person, I feel like, oh, that makes me a failure, but it doesn't.
Right.
It makes you human, and we have to just figure out where it's going to work. And I think that's why it's really important. And that's, to all of our listeners, that's why we have Rhonda on our program, just to really share that. It's like, you don't have to do this alone. There's people out there that are there to support you and assist you, and, surrounding yourself with people that understand. I think that's really the key to it all.
Absolutely, because this is hard. I'm very honest with my clients that I have struggled and still continue to struggle sometimes around my own self-care and eating the right things and getting something. And being able to have someone to partner with, again, whether it's myself or someone else, is really vital to the success and how you feel about yourself. And so be patient, and kind with yourself when you're trying new things. We also don't need to try everything at once. Try to make small changes. We've talked about this in the past, progressive changes. Don't implement everything all at once, because then you likely will, fail at those things. And then that, sets you up for not feeling so good about yourself and your efforts. Start small and make some small changes, gain your confidence, feel empowered by what you're doing. And like we said at the very beginning, ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. And I'm happy to help in any way that I can to any of the listeners out there as well, because I know that it's hard. This is not something that just comes easy, taking good care of our health and our wellness, and whether it's, our physical health or mental health. It's tough. But we can do it, taking slow, progressive steps.
And Rhonda, how can our listeners get a hold of you if they are looking for your book, or if they're looking to, contact you so that you can work with them?
Absolutely. The best place is my website. It's rhondaarmourcoaching.com. Everything is there that you need. Information about my book and buying that if that helps. Booking a complimentary consultation with me. It's just a chat, to see if coaching might work for you. We, can share some information and have a conversation about, why you might need some assistance and how I might be able to help. You can book that right through my website, and you can see a little bit on my website as well, a bit more what we talked about today about my sort of methodology and philosophy around coaching, because it is very personalized, so you can read up on that as well.
Thank you so much. Do you have any last-minute tips for our listeners, or anything you want to share with us, anything that's going to be happening?
I think just as we, just seasons change and as we get closer to the holidays, and I know we'll probably have a December podcast recording, which is always exciting because we're talking about holidays, but things are starting to ramp up around that, and we don't need to wait until the new year to start to take care of ourselves. We're in the middle of November. There's still plenty of 2022 to make some small changes. And I say small, I stress that you don't need to turn your world upside down and fix everything at once, but don't wait until the new year to make some changes. You can really make some changes right now that will have a big impact, even if they're just small changes. So get on that right now and decide that you're going to start to take better care of your health and your self-care today.
Perfect. I love that. Thank you so much, my friend, for coming on again.
Thank you as always.
It is always a pleasure. And for all of our listeners, please go check out some of the playlists that we have that Rhonda's in on our SoundCloud. And we also have her all listed on our Divas That Care website. And also you can check her out on Skechers, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. We have lots of amazing places that Rhonda is listed, and we are so excited. And you definitely want to check out some of her other past shows, because she gives a lot of tips and tools to really help you out. Again, Rhonda, thank you so much. And thank you to all of our amazing listeners. You know, I had a great time. We love having all these amazing guests on our program. We love having Rhonda on our program, especially because, as I said, she always comes authentic and heart-centered, and she really does want to help and support as many people as she can. So definitely go and check her out. I hope that everybody out there does something kind today. The world needs a little bit of kindness. So until next time, everyone, take care.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.